In the digital landscape of the 21st century, social media has reshaped nearly every aspect of how we connect, communicate, and conceptualize ourselves and the world around us. Behind every tap and swipe, beneath the glossy surface of posts and stories, profound psychological dynamics are at play, often influencing us in ways we scarcely recognize. While widespread discussions center on topics like cyberbullying, digital addiction, or the pitfalls of comparison culture, the reality is far more nuanced, and at times, more quietly pervasive. One of the most significant but underappreciated psychological effects arises from the very mechanisms that make social media so captivating. The dopamine-driven feedback loops embedded in likes, shares, and comments. Each digital affirmation triggers a surge of dopamine, the brain's pleasure chemical, reinforcing the behavior, uploading, checking, scrolling, and gradually creating a behavioral dependency closely analogous to traditional substance addiction. Over time, the brain adapts, coming to crave those fleeting hits of validation and recognition, often at the expense of self-esteem and well-being. Studies have revealed that the anticipation of positive feedback activates the same neural circuits involved in other reward-seeking behaviors, leading to compulsive checking and an inability to disengage, even when it negatively impacts work, sleep, or relationships. Yet, social media's psychological impacts are not universally negative. For many, especially those in marginalized or isolated circumstances, digital platforms offer much-needed lifelines, a space where voices that once went unheard now find resonance and solidarity. Individuals from the neurodivergent community or those who experience social anxiety often find online interactions less fraught than their real-world counterparts. By allowing for controlled, asynchronous communication, social media reduces the immediacy and unpredictability of face-to-face exchanges. This can foster deeper, more meaningful relationships, free from the pressures of physical presence and instant verbal response. However, the efficacy of these connections is tempered by the curated nature of online personas. In the digital world, most users selectively share only the highlights of their lives, crafting an idealized version of themselves. As passive consumers, we're repeatedly exposed to these seemingly perfect realities. This fuels what psychologists now refer to as the compare and despair effect, a perpetual cycle where individuals measure their own real lives against the flawless facades they see on their screens. Research highlights that continuous exposure to these unattainable standards often breeds chronic dissatisfaction, amplifies low self-esteem, and precipitates feelings of inadequacy. These dynamics are especially pronounced among adolescents and young adults, whose senses of identity and self-worth are still under formation. The daily diet of meticulously orchestrated images and status updates doesn't just distort self-perception. It can trigger depressive symptoms, heighten anxiety, and ultimately drive social withdrawal. Further complicating this psychological landscape is the architecture of social media itself. Algorithms are designed to maximize engagement, but in doing so, they often privilege emotionally charged or polarizing content. This can result in feeds teeming with negativity, outrage, or sensationalism. Users find themselves navigating an echo chamber that amplifies pre-existing fears, insecurities, and biases, while systematically minimizing exposure to diverse, balanced perspectives. Over time, this not only distorts perceptions of reality, but also breeds an atmosphere of tribalism, suspicion, and heightened mental strain. Information fatigue sets in as the relentless barrage of notifications demands constant attention, eroding emotional resilience and making it harder to distinguish fact from fiction. Additionally, a phenomenon known as doom scrolling has emerged as a significant concern. In the quiet hours of the night, countless users are drawn into an endless loop of consuming negative news, tragedy, and controversy. This compulsive behavior disrupts natural sleep patterns, increases cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, and chips away at emotional stability. While the immediate effects may be subtle, the cumulative toll on mental health can be profound. increasing the risk for anxiety disorders, depression, and other psychological ailments. Yet amid these challenges, social media also serves as an unexpected but vital platform for mental health advocacy and support. Campaigns focused on awareness, destigmatization, and resource sharing now reach millions, breaking long-standing taboos around psychological well-being. Viral hashtags like #mental-health-awareness and #self-care have democratized access to coping strategies, therapy resources, and peer support. These online communities transcend geographic borders, connecting people to shared experiences and knowledge that might have otherwise remained inaccessible. Personal testimonies and professional advice circulate rapidly, helping to normalize conversations about mental health challenges and reduce shame. However, even here, complexities abound. The wide availability of information risks fueling self-diagnosis, misinformation, and even an over-personalization of mental struggles. Conditions like body dysmorphic disorder may be exacerbated by the unrelenting focus on aesthetics and the proliferation of filtered, edited images. Meanwhile, an overload of wellness advice can sometimes create pressure to perform self-care, adding yet another layer of expectation and potential for disappointment. Therefore, the psychological impacts of social media in the digital age are intricate, multifaceted, and in constant evolution. They reflect a tension between the promise of empowerment and the risks of exploitation, between authentic connection and curated illusion. In navigating this complex terrain, experts emphasize the necessity of a balanced, mindful approach to digital consumption. This includes fostering digital literacy so that users, young and old alike, can critically engage with what they see, recognize manipulation, and cultivate healthy online habits. Community-based support systems, both online and offline, are imperative to mitigate isolation and provide meaningful guidance in moments of vulnerability. Finally, there is a growing call for social media platforms themselves to reimagine the ways they operate. Conscious, intentional design, prioritizing user well-being over pure profitability, may entail rethinking algorithmic incentives, building in features that encourage meaningful interaction over mindless consumption, and providing safeguards against predatory or harmful content. As individuals, communities, and societies reckon with the far-reaching implications of their digital lives, the ultimate goal becomes not only to connect, but to do so wisely, compassionately, and with a renewed awareness of the profound interplay between technology and the human mind.